Bandeyam Shri Guru Shiyatha Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishikam Vitam Scha Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Gurva Bhishtam Supurakam Garganara Sisha Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nipanam Shri Rupa Patanugam Govinda Abhidam Ujwalam Varatanum Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Pande Vishwagurun Shah Divyat Bhagavat Prem Noe Bija Pradam Devam Divyatanam Suchandavaranam Balarka Shelan Sandrananda Puram Sadekavaranam Vairagya Vidyambudim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Banditam Shubharam Mareka Sharanam Nyashishvara Shidaram Vanshakapatarubhyasya Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavenibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahamaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaurata Vishe Namah. Sri Chaitanya Bhagawat by Srila Vrindaban Das Thakur with translation by Sarvabhavana Das. This is Madhya-khanda, chapter 22, the wonderful qualities of Sri Nityananda. All glories to Sri Gaurachandra, who is an ocean of mercy. He is the beautiful son of Mother Sachi and Sri Jagannath Mishra. He is known as Sri Krishna Chaitanya. He has rained down showers of benediction upon the living entities by distributing the holy name of Krishna. Nobody witnessed the infinite transcendental pastimes of the Lord as he manifested them along with his associates, Nityananda Prabhu, Gadadhar Pandit, and others. The Lord returned home after chastising Devananda Pandit, who also returned home in a state of acute mental agony. The cause of all his suffering was his close association with the mundane students and scholars. Although many considered Devananda saintly, he had to flee from Sri Chaitanya's presence. He was not pure enough to remain in the Lord's presence. The Supreme Lord Sri Vishwambar is attained only through the grace of saintly Vaishnavas. One may chant the Lord's name and perform austerities, but if such activities lack devotion, they are useless. In the eyes of the public, such a person may appear to be attracting the Lord's mercy by apparently performing some devotional activities, but factually he is deprived of any actual spiritual ecstasy. These are not my words. I simply repeat what the Vedas declare, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has given the verdict. Mother Sachi, in whose womb the Supreme Lord Gaurachandra appeared, was guilty of some offense committed previously against a saintly Vaishnava. The Lord personally exonerated his mother from this offense and instructed her in the science of loving devotional service to the Lord. Dear readers, so Mahaprabhu told Mother Sachi she had made an offense to Advaita Acharya by thinking that Advaita Acharya was responsible for taking sannyas and leaving home. But Mahaprabhu had her take the dust from Advaita Acharya's feet to relieve herself of that offense which Mahaprabhu mentioned. This is all the Lord's divine Leela. Dear readers, listen attentively to this wonderful narration, and this will alleviate you from the sin of Vaishnava Aparad. One day, Lord Chaitanya sat on the throne of the deities. He picked up the Shalagram Shila forms of the Lord, placed them upon his lap, and manifested his supreme absolute form. He said, I am the Supreme Lord Narayan, Sri Krishna, who in Kali Yuga appears in the form of the holy name. I bridge the ocean, and my incarnation is Sri Ramachandra. I was resting on the milk ocean upon my bed of Ananta Sesh when the roaring sounds of Advaitacharya, nada, calling me down to earth, awaken me. The reason for my advent in this incarnation is to freely distribute Krishna Prem. O Nada and Srivas, ask all you can. I am here to give. When Nityananda saw the manifestation of the Lord, he immediately held an opened umbrella above Sri Chaitanya's head. Gadadhar Pandit was busy preparing betel for the Lord, and the others began to whisk yak-tail chamaras around the Lord. The Lord dispensed his causeless mercy to everyone, and the devotees received it, each according to his heart's desire. Each devotee had a different basis for begging favor from the Lord. Someone said, my father is mischievous. If he can be rectified, it will be a great relief to me. Let me just see something. Someone said, my father is mischievous. If he can be rectified, it will be a great relief to me. Some wanted blessings for their guru or disciples or son or wife. Sri Vishwambar, who never disregards the sincere prayers of his devotees, fulfilled each of their desires with Krishna Prem, smiling benignly upon them. The exalted personality, Srivas Pandit, then said, my Lord, we greatly desire that you bless Sachi Mata with Krishna Prem. The Lord replied, please do not make such a request. I cannot comply with it. She has committed an offense against a Vaishnava devotee. Therefore, she is deprived of love of Krishna. Again, Srivas Pandit said, such words steal away our very life air, my Lord. She has borne you in her womb. You, who are the Supreme Lord, I cannot fathom why she has refused your favor. She is our very life and soul, the universal mother. O Lord, please discard your deception and be merciful to her. You, my Lord, are her son, and she is the mother of the entire existence. How can a son consider his mother's action as offensive? If she committed a mistake against a Vaishnava, then absolve it and favor her. The Lord replied, I can instruct her properly, but I am unable to pardon her from Vaishnava aparad. She has to be forgiven by that person alone to whom she was offensive. No one else can do that. You know well how Durvasa Muni was only forgiven for his offenses by King Ambarish, to whom he had been offensive. She has committed an offense against Nada, Advaita. Therefore, he alone can forgive her, if he so desires, and thereby make her the recipient of the Lord's sweet mercy. I can assure you that she will receive love of Krishna the very moment she takes the dust from Advaitacharya's lotus feet and smears it upon her head. Immediately, the devotees accompanied Mother Sachi to meet Advaitacharya and explained everything to him. When Advaitacharya heard them, he remembered Sri Vishnu to avoid disaster and retorted to them, Do you want to smash my head open? She is the mother of my Lord and Master. Therefore, she is my mother as well. It is her feet dust which must decorate my head. She is not an ordinary person. I cannot even fathom her position. She is the embodiment of devotional service, the universal mother. How could you bring yourselves to say these words? If anyone takes her name, even for some material reasons, then he is relieved of all suffering. Mother Sachi, I, is non-different from Ganga Devi. She is the same personality as Mother Yashoda and Mother Devaki. As Advaita was delineating the truth about Mother Sachi, he fell unconscious to the ground in great spiritual ecstasy. Realizing that the opportune moment had arrived, Mother Sachi quickly came from the inner quarters and taking the dust from Advaitacharya's feet, she placed it upon her head. Mother Sachi, a very exalted Vaishnava devotee endowed with perfect devotion, also fell down unconscious, feeling divine bliss as she placed Advaitacharya's foot dust upon her head. All the devotees exclaimed joyously at being able to see this sublime spiritual reciprocation between such exalted personalities. The Lord watched the entire happening from his throne and was satisfied with his mother. He said, now that you are rid of your offenses to Advaitacharya, You are blessed with Krishna Prem. The devotees responded jubilantly to the Lord's words. Thus the Supreme Lord acted as the supreme instructing spiritual master and warned everyone to avoid Vaishnava aparad. He used his own mother as a vehicle to teach others. According to the scriptures, even the most powerful person is destroyed by Vaishnava aparad. Therefore, if one disregards the instructions of the scriptures and commits Vaishnava aparad, he has to suffer the hellish life of a sinner, life after life. What to speak of others? Even the most powerful Sri Chaitanya's own mother, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's own mother, was taken to task for committing Vaishnava aparad. If one really analyzes what was actually Sachi Devi's Vaishnava aparad, then she will be found innocent. Yet the Lord found her guilty. Why do people call him Advaita, which means non-dual? What prompted Mother Sachi to call him Dvaita, dual? A proper understanding of this entire episode includes the transcendental pastimes of Sri Vishwarup. Vishwarup was a very elevated personality. He was the Lord's elder brother. He possessed unsurpassed handsome good looks and was radiant and powerful. Well versed in all branches of philosophy and scriptures, he was gentle and composed. He is non-different from Lord Nityananda. No one could fathom his analysis and explanations of the scriptures, and yet he was playing the role of a child with other children. One day, Sri Jagannath Mishra was invited to an assembly of Brahmin Pandits, and with him he took his son, Vishwarup. All those attending were gray with erudition and tricky logic. They were stunned to see this young, beautiful, and attractive child. His effulgent personality seemed to have stolen their gravity and cynicism. One of the Pandits approached him asking, "How far have you studied, young lad?" Vishwarup replied, "A little of everything." The others did not mind his slightly insolent reply, but his father was embarrassed by it. As they were returning home from the assembly, Sri Jagannath Mishra slapped his son. Reprimanding him, he said, "Why did you not say clearly the names of the books you are studying instead of talking in circles? You certainly made a fool of yourself in that learned assembly and also spoiled my reputation." They returned home, but Jagannath Mishra was still in a fit of rage. Vishwarup decided to go back to that assembly. He went alone and said to the Brahmins, "None of you asked me any questions when I replied to your question. My father was very angry at my reply and your subsequent silence. So now kindly ask me any questions so that I may back up my response to your inquiry." The scholars laughed condescendingly at what they considered mere precocity. One of them said, "Okay, young lad, what did you study today?" Vishwarup explained to them a few aphorisms from logic, and they appreciated and understood his presentation. They then said, "You have explained the aphorism well." Vishwarup replied, "My explanations are a ploy. You have not understood anything." Then, to the utter amazement of the scholars, he refuted all the logical conclusions just established. He did this twice, each time presenting new conclusions and then again refuting them. In a dazed state, the scholars acquiesced, saying, yes, you are most intelligent." However, they were unable to know the truth about him and his words by the influence of the Lord's illusory potency. Although Vishwarup was moving about in their midst, they were entirely ignorant about him. The entire society was so drunk with material activities that they were incapable of glorifying and appreciating a Vaishnava's transcendental status. They were ready to spend handsomely for mundane functions like their son's birthday or marriage, but no one would raise a finger to worship Krishna or follow a Krishna-centered life. All the scholars and teachers prided themselves in their ability to argue based on logic and sophistry, but not one of them endeavored to cultivate Krishna consciousness or devotion to Krishna. If a few amongst them taught the Bhagavad Gita Then instead of explaining its true essence, devotion to Krishna, they spent time in dry speculations. Vishwarup went from one assembly to another, one school to another, but nowhere was devotion to Krishna ever discussed. This threw him into the depths of despondency. Advaita Acharya was then lecturing on the book Yoga Vishishta. Though the book presents the impersonal philosophy, Advaita Acharya explained everything in the light of devotional service to Krishna. Who could actually comprehend Advaita's dissertation? Hence, he was accepted as the foremost amongst the Vaishnavas. For Vishwarup, only Advaita Acharya's association gave him the sublime satisfaction. Therefore, Vishwarup spent as much time as he could with Advaita. Advaita Acharya enjoyed Vishwarup's company and exchanged devotional mellows with him. Vishwambar was then a beautiful young boy, sprightly and radiant. One day, Mother Sachi sent him to call Vishwarup, saying, "Go run and call your brother to come immediately." Vishwambar ran swiftly to Advaita Acharya's house. There he found many exalted devotees, including Srivas Pandit, sitting around Advaita Acharya. Smiling sweetly, Vishwambar said, "O brother, please come quickly and take your lunch." The little boy Vishwambar was so attractive that everyone was bewitched by his extraordinary good looks. They forgot everything and drank in his beauty with their eyes. Every day onwards, the little Vishwambar would arrive at the house on the pretext of calling his elder brother. Advaita Acharya, seeing the boy, began to consider in his heart, "This beautiful lad steals my heart away. This must be the Lord of my heart, and who bewilders my mind with his exquisite beauty. No one could do this to me." So Vishwambar is the super soul within everyone's heart. So having understood Advaita's mind, he quickly left. Vishwambar began to spend more and more time in company of Advaita Acharya, relishing these transcendental moments with him, completely free from all material encumbrances. Detailed narrations of Vishwarup's, says, Vishwarup began to spend more and more time in company of Advaita Acharya, relishing these transcendental moments with him, completely free from all material encumbrances. So here's it. Vishwambar is Mahaprabhu, and he was sent to call Vishwarup. So, detailed narrations of Vishwarup's unlimited pastimes are mentioned early in the Madhya-khanda of this book. By the will of providence, Vishwarup soon left home and took up the sannyas mendicant order, his name becoming Shankararanya. When Vishwarup embraced the renounced order, this left an indelible mark of acute separation in Sachi Devi's tender and vulnerable heart. When the throbbing pain of the first days of Vishwarup's departure had waned to a full despondent ache, when the throbbing pain of the first days of Vishwarup's departure had waned to a full despondent ache, Mother Sachi calmly considered the following thoughts. Advaita Acharya, due to my son's close association with him, must have influenced Vishwarup to take up the renounced order. Mother Sachi never spoke these thoughts aloud. Careful not to commit Vaishnava aparadh, she silently suffered her fate. Then gradually she started finding solace in little Vishwambar. He seemed to understand his mother's grief and did much to give her joy, slowly filling up the emptiness Vishwarup had left behind. Then after some time had passed, and Vishwambar had grown up to a young man, he also started to spend more time in Advaita Acharya's company. Vishwambar stayed little time at home with his young impatient Lakshmi Priya, but was for long hours in Advaita's house. The sad realization dawned on Mother Sachi that her son was hardly in the house and often to be seen in Advaitacharya's house. She began to think, Advaitacharya will also take this son away from me. So out of desperation and anguish, Mother Sachi burst out, exclaiming, to the world he may be known as Advaita, non-dual, but to me he is Dvaita, full of duplicity. He has already driven out my moon-like effulgent first son, and now he will not leave this younger one in peace. I am a destitute mother, yet no one has any pity on me, for this Advaita, I am a destitute mother, yet no one has any pity for me. This Advaita has deceived me. This is all that Mother Sachi had said. It is supposed to be so offensive that the Lord deemed her unfit to render devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Some persons make the grave blunder for which they will soon suffer of trying to compare Vaishnavas, calling one a bigger Vaishnava than the other. Sri Chaitanya made his own mother instrumental in teaching the whole world how to avoid and become free from Vaishnava aparad. If someone does not pay close heed to Sri Chaitanya's warnings and teachings on such Vaishnava aparad, then he will remain completely ignorant about this offense and thus suffer the terrible consequences. In this context, a few words can be said of why Lord Chaitanya revealed this pastime. Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Lord, is the knower of past, present, and future. He foresaw that some evil-minded persons would try to exploit this situation to their own selfish advantage. They would wrongly proclaim Advaitacharya to be the Supreme Lord Krishna, thus violating the instructions of the pure Vaishnavas and thereby committing a grievous offense. These miscreants will protest against those who will rightly declare that Advaita is a pure Vaishnava devotee. Although they may claim to be the followers of Advaitacharya, still no one will rescue them from the jaws of imminent destruction, not even Advaitacharya himself. Sri Chaitanya saw this happening soon in the future, so he punished his own mother in the presence of exalted Vaishnavas like Advaitacharya. If the disciple commits Vaishnava aparad, even the spiritual master cannot protect his disciple against the wrath of the Lord. Furthermore, even the guru is hard-pressed to protect himself from the reactions of Vaishnava aparad committed by his disciples. If the guru is in a very elevated stage of devotion, then he can protect himself alone and not his disciple. But if he is not so elevated, then along with the disciple, he sinks down into hell. Therefore, those who try to glorify Advaitacharya as the Supreme Lord, instead of respecting him as an exalted Vaishnava, in fact, end up criticizing him and dishonoring him. What greater glorification embellishes one than to be known as the associate of the Supreme Lord, Sri Chaitanya. Sri Chaitanya has, of course, declared clearly that Sri Nityananda is the Supreme Lord himself. Moreover, one can only know the supreme absolute position of Sri Chaitanya by the mercy of Sri Nityananda. Only by Sri Nityananda's mercy can one recognize the true Vaishnava and understand his transcendental position. Without Nityananda's sweet grace, there is no way one will be delivered from the punishment of Vaishnava aparad. By his energy alone, one may develop the mood of loving devotion to the Supreme Lord. The true followers of Sri Nityananda are free from fault-finding. They engage their full time in blissfully glorifying Sri Chaitanya, and they are always careful to avoid all the pitfalls in devotional life. Thus, Sri Chaitanya is their very life and soul. No ordinary person with little piety can become a devotee of Nityananda, because to such a devotee, of Nityananda is revealed the supramundane activities of Sri Chaitanya. One who reads or hears this transcendental narration about Vishwarup becomes a servant of Sri Ananta Sesha, very dear to Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Vishwarup are one and the same personality. Mother Sachi is well aware of this esoteric truth. Others who are fixed in mature Krishna consciousness also know this truth. All glory to Sri Nityananda, who is always taking shelter of Sri Gaurachandra. You are the stalwart preacher of congregational chanting from Gauda Desh. Who can take shelter of Lord Chaitanya without first receiving your grace? If anyone falls from the favor and associates of Lord Nityananda, if anyone falls from the favor and association of Lord Nityananda, then he can never ever experience actual bliss. Will that day ever be mine when I shall see Sri Nityananda and Sri Chaitanya together with all their associates? My greatest source of strength and security is that Sri Chaitanya is the Lord of my dear Sri Nityananda. I pray at the lotus feet of Advaita Acharya Prabhu that may my natural attraction flow spontaneously to his lotus feet and to the feet of all his servitors. Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Sri Nityananda are my life and soul. I, Vrindaban Das, offer this humble song at their lotus feet. So that's now we'll sing Hari Haraya. It shows how, as an example, Mahaprabhu told that Mother Sachi had committed a Vaishnava aparad because she blamed Advaita Acharya for causing Vishwarup to leave home and take sannyas. She thought because he's spent so much time in Advaita Acharya's house, where they discussed devotional activities and sang, then she considered that Advaita Acharya had turned Vishwarup's mind and caused him to leave home. And then she worried that Advaita Acharya will do the same thing to Vishwambar, to Mahaprabhu. So she had some resentment in her heart towards Advaita Acharya, and Mahaprabhu said that she had to act upon or relieve herself of that resentment in order to get his favor. And she did this by taking the foot dust from Sri Advaita Acharya. And this is a very nice example here in the Sri Chaitanya Bhagawat about how one must always maintain some feelings of love and honor towards the Vaishnavas. Okay, now I'm going to sing Hari Haraya. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Mananaman Giridhari Gopinatha Mananaman Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Janardan Seva Sari Kora Bhakta Vrindaban Shiva Sari Kora Bhakta Vrindaban Jai Rupa Sanatha Bhakta Shijima Gopala Bhattadasa Ranguna. Shijima Gopala Bhattadasa Ranguna. Echai Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan. Echai Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan. Jaoite Vignana Shami Stapuran. Jaoite Vignana Shami Stapuran. Echai Gosai Jar Mui Taradas. Echai Gosai Jar Mui Taradas. Dasabar Pada Renu Mora Panchagas. Dasabar Pada Renu Mora Panchagas. Kadir Chanana Sevi Bhakta Sanivas. Kadir Chanana Sevi Bhakta Sanivas. Janame Janame More Abilas. Janame Janame More Abilas. Echai Gosai Jabe Bhaje Koilabas. Echai Gosai Jabe Bhaje Koilabas. Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Korila Prakash. Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Korila Prakash. Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindaban. Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindaban. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas. Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Narada Modas. Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Narada Modas. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas. Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Narada Modas. Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Narada Modas. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Goranga Gandharvika Giridhari Juki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtatara Sadasi Srimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajaka Charyashta Tara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai, Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Thakur Ki Jai, Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai, Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai, Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai, Rupanuga Guru Bharga Ki Jai, Namachar Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath, Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai, Premasigo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi, Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Vishvabaranya Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Shri Ram Mayapur Ki Jai, Saparshada Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai, Saparshada Shriman Mahaprabhu Ki Jai, Shri Kuladvip Ki Jai, Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai, Soquel Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Seva Ashram Ki Jai, Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Vrindaban Dham Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopi Govardhan, Sham Kuna Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo Ki Jai, Shri Purushottam Dham Ki Jai, Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Jo Ki Jai, Bhakti Vigna Vinashaya, Shina Shingadev Ki Jai, Bhakta Prabhara Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, all the assembled devotees Ki Jai, Shri Gopastami Ki Jai, Shri Srinivasacharya Tirubhav Mahotsav Ki Jai, Shri Dhananjaya Pandit Tirubhav Mahotsav Ki Jai, Shri Gadadhar Das Tirubhav Mahotsav Ki Jai, all the assembled devotees Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.